Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Roundup episode. This one, it's got some stuff that matters. So Denuvo, it actually just launched something really bad, and the worst news is it's already in some of your games, kind of against your consent. Then Sony have, relented on some copyright abuses, maybe. Anthem now is a team of 30, and you'll see why that's actually kind of a good thing, plus a whole bunch more with there being loads of earnings calls, and even more stuff past that. First though, something new. So this is key art from a game concept that our team has just finished working on, and it's also this month's Patreon special. As for what the game is, well, what I'm going to say is take a close look at some of the things there. Let me know what you think it could be. Now, to manage expectations, if we do pick up that project fully, that will be after our fairly hardcore AU Antarctic narrative adventure game that will be coming out soonish enough. Now, of course, our loot tier this month has also got this Tiefling gear for the D&D people out there, and the Paladin pin, if that's a class that you play, and believe me, they're very lustrous and shiny. So, there's that. That's the loot for May. Thank you for all of your support there, and with that, let's get straight into the video. Alright, well, we've got a dragon to slay here because it seems like Denuvo have set out to compete with Riot's Vanguard in the big contest of super invasive security software that absolutely nobody asked for in their games. Doom Eternal's latest patch introduced Denuvo Anti-Cheat as a means of preventing cheating in the new online battle mode. But the problem is that Denuvo Anti-Cheat has already got a very bad reputation for being one of the most invasive pieces of software that you can install on your computer in terms of the security implications, some of the privacy, and also stability. Where have we heard this before? Vanguard. Now, it's important to note here from the outset that Denuvo Anti-Cheat, DAC, is different from Denuvo Anti-Tamper, DAT. DAT is a piece of software used to obfuscate code that basically, doing that to make it more difficult to crack games, so it's an anti-piracy thing. As we all know, it of course can cause performance issues at times, but for the most part it is, I would say, inoffensive as compared to what we are going to cover now. Which is, actually a lot more offensive. So DAC runs at the kernel level, much like Vanguard, and that means that it can interfere with normal operating system operations, and it can collect information on whatever it wants, right? Pretty much anything your computer is doing. It does not take an expert here to understand that this is potentially a huge security flaw and that it could be, gravely exploited by anyone with malicious intent, right? It's installing a vulnerability on your computer. Now, like with Vanguard, DAC, that's got to be turned on for the game to even run. There is no option to disable it and sacrifice online multiplayer. If you want to play Doom Eternal single player, you need it turned on. And what's really sticking with the community here is they weren't informed about this. This is such an invasive piece of software. It was just added to the game, and they were not informed. It was basically smuggled in the back door, in the middle of a post-launch update to a game. That sucks. Now, look, while I would say id and Bethesda likely do have no ill intent in including DAC, and they probably do mean it genuinely, or definitely I'd say, mean it for anti-cheat, what they've essentially done, though, is put a considerable security vulnerability and inconvenience on their player base. It also suggests that they're paying very little mind to the end user. These kernel-level anti-cheat systems, they really do appear to be all the rage at the minute, and man, that's a worrying trend, because that's not a thing a few years ago. Riot's Vanguard, it's been in the news pretty much since Valorant went into beta testing for, being far too enthusiastic and how it blocks suspicious software. And that's caused issues for people, right? And those issues, they have ranged from performance difficulties to, blocking keyboard drivers to causing, straight up computer shutdowns. It is absolutely not good. And, this is all coming in the face of massive criticism from the community for it being too invasive and just being this always-on piece of software that nobody wants on their machine. It's really quite bad. Now, the Vanguard team this week did confirm that it had banned 8,893 accounts since the Valorant beta began, but with, look, fewer cheaters, that's a good thing. Yes, that's always a good thing. But you also have to wonder, what is the cost, and is it worth it? Is 9k bans satisfying? Is that a satisfying trade-off, for what's actually happened here in a player base that in some cases is boycotting the game? Kind of hard to tell right now, though. This is a worrying trend that I do not like, that I think we should probably push back against pretty hard. Now next, after a couple of false starts, GTA 5 was revealed as the Epic Games Store free game for this week. and the store promptly burst into flames. Now, to their credit, Epic quickly acknowledged the issue, and 12 hours later, the issue was fixed. But the downtime sure was major during, such a large, for such a large storefront, right? It was clearly showing that they were struggling to deal with peak loads whenever that happened. And that was especially rough because, it took down the store, but it also impacted some games on their launcher. And, one of our launchers, it started flickering in and out between English and Portuguese. Why? I don't know, but that's what happened. And it does speak volumes to, I'd say, just how impactful Epic's weekly free game scheme can be, especially when you put in a game like this. Now, we already know that these deals, basically from Epic, they operate by Epic paying for expected sales in advance, but, with a partnership with a dev like Rockstar, that just shows there's like no ceiling to the kind of deals they'll make, because it had mostly been indies, but this is really big. And rumor actually has it that over the next few weeks, we're going to see Civilization, we're going to see Borderlands, the Handsome Collection, and also Ark Survival Evolved. And that's quite major, because if we include GTA 5, then that's 3 of the top 20 games on Steam at the moment being given out for free on Epic. Now, on that, there's another Epic story. It's a small one, but it's actually a very nice one that, in a break from some of the Epic coverage, is actually very good for the end user. It's good for the consumer. Basically, if you buy a game, but then that game shortly goes on sale afterwards, well, they'll automatically refund you the discount. This is an automated system that they have built to do refunds. Now, it basically means that you can make a purchase on that store without worrying about, tomorrow there being a sale that makes you feel a bit silly. And that certainly is a customer-focused feature, absolutely nice to see from them, and I guess it's one that technically costs them and devs money, but is sort of the right thing to do by the consumer. So, you know what? As much as we give Epic, kind of give them some stuff for their exclusivity, this is a really great feature, and it would be pretty cool if Steam actually brought that on board as well. And then next, a quick Sony update. So, as From Heel vs. Babyface has actually reported that his channel, and those of some others, have had their copyright claims lifted on some of the content that they've made from Sony. Now, this is, of course, what should happen. It's the right thing to happen, but right now, we don't really know anything else. Sure, Sony's reps could just lift them now in order to reapply them later, so those videos are down when the game launches, but also, it might just be here that they know they're wrong, they know it's a battle as well, that they can't win, and that the leaks are out, and there's basically nothing they can do to stop people talking about those leaks, because they are out in the wild. So there's that, and then of course there's that they're in completely bad legal footing. We've got YouTube lawyers, saying things, and then we've just got, I think, any common sense read of the law, which is also saying that is just not content that they own. They cannot copyright that stuff. Like, whether you agree or disagree with Az's video, that was just him giving his commentary, at worst using promo footage for their game and their trailers, but doing it in a way that is obviously fair use because it's for comment and critique. So yeah, there you go. That is basically what's up there. Maybe they have yielded. Maybe they've just noticed, you know what, the Streisand effect, pretty powerful. We've already Streisand ourselves pretty darn badly. Maybe we don't want to continue. Then next up, we got an Anthem update, and this is one that's simple but gives you a peek into game dev, which I think is really good, so it's actually fun to cover, though they accidentally didn't make themselves that clear. Now, the TLDR here is that the small team in Austin working on Anthem Next is about 30 people, and they're focusing on prototyping. Now, many people read that post, I'd say rightly, understandably, to mean that they've just started, and many people also worried about the low staff count, maybe thinking, oh, they've only put 30 staff in the project? Clearly it's a low priority for EA. Now, on the first point, they've since clarified that this is a team that's been working on Anthem Next since 2019. Now, as for, whether this small team reflects EA not caring and not giving them the money, I would say absolutely not, and that's because of how software development and game development works, and I think anyone in those fields will tell you the same thing. So in the earlier stages of a project, right, you're going to be doing gray boxing, rapid prototyping, all that sort of stuff. You're not expecting to write production level code, and getting loads of graphical assets is only going to slow you down when a few gray boxes to map something out will do the job. A smaller team means less management overhead, and they'll be far better to just quickly test prototypes. Now, the idea here is that once that is done, and this is common practice, once that's done and pre-production is finished, then, the pipeline for the full game is made, and then you scale up the headcount for production. And if you think about EA's mistakes and Anthem's mistakes in the past. It was that they scaled up that team without a clear plan of how to make that a good game. So it just burnt time and money. And if you then think about Respawn Entertainment and the thing that worked out really well for them, which was rapid prototyping, as as evidenced by Vince Zampella and the interview that they actually gave to, I think was it LA Times, and then Vince Zampella going over to DICE LA to sort of help them with that. So this kind of shows that for doing Anthem next, they really are basically starting with a clean slate. And I think that's the right thing to do, because if you look at Anthem, you've got these great assets, you've got customization that absolutely could nail a power fantasy there, you've got the flying, just all that stuff that's fundamentally cool, but there's no good video game. The thing to do is to just say, to hell with everything we have made, throw it away, reuse the art assets, of course, but just start from the beginning and make a really good game. Free from the shackles of what had came before. That is the right thing to do for Anthem, and it's probably going to take a long time before we see any big release or anything like that. And you know what? That's good, because Anthem, it was a game, yeah, but there was barely anything to it, really, and this is what is needed. Then next up, a bit of console news. So Sony's marketing approach with the PS5 has been widely criticized in the face of Microsoft's dominating media presence, and that criticism actually reached Sony themselves in their most recent investors call. And it was kind of interesting because, they were responding to a tough question, and it was a really tough question to get in that, just very straight. But their CFO said that the results will be everything and that all will become clear after launch. So, in short, Sony's line was basically, it's too early to tell, they've got a plan, they're going to make their utmost effort in the lead up to launch to, do the marketing job right. So, that's kind of their response. Now, on that note, they said the PS5 is still on track to release holiday 2020, and there are, no major problems have arisen in the development pipeline for their first party and partner studios, so they anticipate games actually launching when they should. Then other tidbits from the call included confirmation that the PS4 has sold over 110 million lifetime units, and that PS Plus has got 41.5 million members, which is actually up 5 million members from the last 12 months. So there's that. And keeping with earnings calls, we've got Ubisoft and Capcom. So, Ubisoft's Q4 was way better than they anticipated. Basically, right, AC Odyssey had big engagement, Siege was also reaching record engagement and increased spending, and then, interestingly, The Division 2 made a comeback for them. This is, of course, likely down to that game getting pretty deep discounts across the board. So that stuff seems to have went well. They then revealed that they have 5 major games planned in the coming fiscal year. Now, those games are AC Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Gods and Monsters, and then one more unannounced AAA game. Now, to add more info to that, according to Jason Schreier, one of the most well-connected people in the industry, he says it's going to be a new Far Cry. Now, Ubisoft did say that if working from home causes further issues in their pipelines, then they may only get 4 of those games released in time. But that more or less, I'd say, does confirm that that last game is the Far Cry, as Jason suggested, but because it, maybe one of those games might not come out, that it's maybe a bit further off in its development process. Now, on Valhalla, that apparently set new records for an Ubi announcement with 200 million views across the trailer and user content, as well as a pretty notable return to previous Assassin's Creed games like Odyssey. Basically, right, here's the deal. Their live services have been going pretty well for them across the board, and people seem to be decently excited for what is coming. And overall, that just equals success. Now, on Capcom's end, this is actually good news. So their profits hit record highs for a 3rd year in a row. The reason why I say that's good is because if you sell good products and people like them, people will buy them. That's kind of what's up there. Most of their improvements have came from Iceborne and digital catalog sales. And then as well as their leveraging of strong IP for crossover content and promotions. But basically here, even if their games are getting a year or 2 old, what's happening is people are actually picking them up. And they're picking them up at high prices based on their strong critical reputation. Now, as for, this year, they say they plan to release another 10 SKUs, but that probably only means like 2 to 3 games. Then the latter half of 2021 is where their next slate of games is going to appear sort of realistically. So that's what to expect. But I'd say, look, this is actually good enough news, because this is a publisher doing well financially because they made a game that people liked, and that game was, generally free of BS, free of that stuff that we don't like. Devil May Cry, it was just a really good game, and, they weren't selling you boosts or anything like that. The same goes for Monster Hunter. And then there's one final bit of news that I guess we kind of missed out on a little bit, and that is that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, they're the big remaster. The remaster actually looks pretty sweet, so I'm pretty excited about that. Seems like it's going to be the exact same gameplay, exact same soundtrack, but just totally, revamped or redone levels in terms of the graphics. So that's what's kind of going on there. Pretty cool overall. So that's pretty much it for today's video. If you'd like to actually own a piece of what our game studio is getting up to, you can check out the game concept, and I'd be interested to see what you actually think it is if you take a peek at the art. So there's that on Patreon, as well as all the other loot, and of course the daily briefing helps out a great deal. And then finally, your likes and your subs seriously help out on this platform. Thank you for all of your support with our content this week, and with that, I will see you next time.